Hello, 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 and welcome to the Kevin Ross Emery Show with,
Ashley Olstein. How are you?
I am. I'm going to be honest. I think I'm somewhere between medium well and overcooked, and that's okay. It's
You
really interesting. What?
I was going to say, are you reaching your threshold with the renovation?
Well, it's kind of interesting. As we've mentioned, I had to have a roof torn up and a new roof built, and I've had the kitchen gutted, and it's still coming together, and delays and stuff like this. But because my office is in my house, because I had an office in my house that I saw clients and an office in my house where I work, to have to be chasing upstairs and downstairs and what corner of the house could I possibly work in today, or do I just need to pack everything up and go out, and then I need to go out somewhere where it's private if I'm doing client sessions, and who are the workmen coming through today, and am I going to have to watch and go, you know, letting water drip on my nice table and leaving it there instead of putting a bucket under the stuff that you're working on, Mr. Plumber Man, doesn't actually work really well for me. So I'm kind of feeling like I'm semi babysitting
Mm.
the workmen, and you work in this field because you do design, you do thing. I mean, who babysits the people on your project that the workmen do? I mean, I want to say to every workman that comes in here, would you treat this like it was your house? Would you actually leave
Yeah.
that mess? Would you actually like let stuff drip on your night on something nice and leave it there? Like,
Some of them would. Some of them would. Renovations are hard, especially if you're trying to live there. It's just a lot. And in the beginning, everything's rosy and you love everyone and you're like, "Oh my God, they're helping me get my dream come true in my kitchen." By about now, about halfway, you start like, yeah, feeling a little salty. Exactly. By the time you finish, you're going to be like, get out of my house. I've had enough. But you're going to get there. It's all going to be good.
yeah, I do okay with the chaos because I was born chaotic. I'll die chaotic. Um, I don't. It's not so much the chaos. It's feeling like I in every spare moment between anything I'm working on and anything I'm doing or any clients that I'm doing, that I've got to walk around the house like I have 2 year olds in it. And
Understood. Yeah.
I'm
It's a lot.
like, yeah, like guys, like that I bought a light to go there. So putting in a recessed cheap light when I bought a $200 chandelier probably isn't going to work for me. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. It is the type of thing where you have to be, it's good that you're there and bad that you're there. It's nice that you can kind of manage it because sometimes they just will go ahead and not really think about the plan. And you'll end up with outlets or switches where you didn't want them. And then do you pay to have them moved or do you deal with it? It's one of those things. So kind of nice that you're there and can herd the cats, just keep them like, in line. But
yeah,
job, it's another job which you didn't need.
yeah. Well, I'm doing a lot of work on the mastering intentional authentic communication mastery course
Yeah.
that I'm hoping to release by the end of this year. And so, of course, we have 5 planets retrograde, Mercury being one of them. And so I go in, I start taping another segment because my creative team, I'm taping the segments and working off the slides so we can do timing and deciding where stuff goes. And I get halfway through one of the class modules to hit the next button and go, there have been no slides created for the last half of this class in the middle of my taping.
It's not good.
But I said, well, I could do it in 2 parts. It's just going to my creative agency. I don't have to do it all at once. I mean, they can get 2 parts. I mean, we're just trying to do timing and information stuff. So I go to save the half I've done. Internet goes down, computer dies, lose everything.
All right. So the universe was saying that was garbage. You've got to start over, dump, do it over. That sucks, though. Sorry. Not
well, you know, it's okay because I've spent an hour and a half today meeting with my creative team, and we're revamping how I'm going to present it. And I think what we're going to do is I'm going to teach it like I was teaching a weekend course because it's 16 hours of content. And they're just going to tape me teaching it. And I mentioned to you, I want you to be one of the people in the audience, so to speak, one of the students. But we're going to do it like it's going to be in 2 days. It might be a Saturday, Sunday. It might be a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. But 2 days, and I'm going to teach it just like I would teach it out. And they're just going to tape it, and then they'll do all the breakups because I've gone crazy going, okay, these segments are only supposed to be so long. Well, I'm not, so I need to rush this, or I need to drive. It's like, no. I just was like. So anyways, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I played hooky today and had a little beach day with my daughter, which was so nice. The one that's going away. So we're getting a little mommy-daughter time. So had a couple of hours at the beach with her today. And I just saw Stacy wrote, Born Chaotic would be an awesome name for a memoir. Stacy, I also think would be a great name for a rock band. So, yeah. And speaking of Mercury retrograde, our little name tags and all of that have disappeared. And as you're chatting, I'm trying to find them, but I don't know where they went. So yeah, there's that. But you know, the ones on our picture, we get a little, the little name.
Oh yeah, you're right. That has completely
gone.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to them.
Oh, there they are. I guess it doesn't go up if we put on. That makes sense. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So if we put,
they did. Yeah.
Disappear, reappear. Got it. Okay. We're still learning the StreamYard subtleties. Anyway.
So this Stacy is the Stacy we had on the show, right?
Correct. And you're going to have her on the SIP this weekend, right?
This weekend.
Yeah.
Spiritual Interactive Panel, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can go to Facebook, New Hampshire Metaphysical, or LinkedIn, Kevin Ross Emery, or YouTube, Kevin Ross Emery, and it will be playing live. And Stacy and Patty Anastasia and myself and one other person who I'm blanking on, and maybe I'll find it before the show is over, but we're going to do animal communication. It's free. Come on in, listen to the panel talk about animal communication and how they see it playing out in the world, how it plays out in their practice, what are the benefits of it. And then, you know, you get to ask questions. So, Stacy, I'm looking forward to playing with you on Sunday afternoon.
I'm going to have a little FOMO. I won't be able to join. Oh, well.
Well.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough when you're just so popular and such a busy girl that you don't have time for the rest of us.
Yes, indeed. It's my mom's birthday, so we're having a birthday dinner that evening. So,
she has one every year. Started at 7:50. The thing will be over. Invite her to eat in front of the computer screen. Maybe she'll enjoy animal communication.
You know, if we eat, we're going to have an early dinner. So if everyone's out of my hair in time, not that I'm rushing them out, but I will tune in and be a questioner rather than a questionee.
There you go.
Perfect.
So before we bring on tonight's guest, And the way that my screen is working in my third temporary setup, uh, uh, is I can't have the StreamYard in my visual at the same time I'm having the astrology notes I have for the week. So you're just going to have to be patient. And if I look funny on the screen, I can't see myself right now. We have a few things coming up. We do have 5 planets in retrograde right now, which means we've got a lot of stuff going on inside. It's about time for us to turn inside and rethink things, re-strategize things, re-question things, retrograde, review, reset, even re-energize. It's not your time to be forcing or trying to push yourself or things out into the world. It's time for you to kind of go in and make sure and check in on how things are doing. We have these retrogrades 4 times a year. And, sometimes people get very, very hinky about a Mercury retrograde, like, oh my God, Mercury's retrograde, the sky is falling. No, guys, the sky's not falling, but it's trying to get you to stop, tune out all the external noise, step back from all of your hyper-focused, goal-oriented, or obsessed nature of what I got to get done or who I got to be or where am I going, and just stop and give yourself permission to reset, to say, okay, is this really what I still want? Is this still the message that I feel resonates to me? Is this where I'm going? So we're still in that phase. Now, it's been in Virgo, and today it goes retrograde back into Leo. So while it was in Virgo, a lot of its focus was on the details of stuff, because Virgo's got details. They want the details. They want to know how to fix and change the little things that make stuff work. Moving back into Leo, Mercury retrograde is going to ask you to look at the bigger picture. What is your bigger goal? What are you really trying to create? And how do you need to be representing your creative best self in your life? So this last part of the Mercury retrograde, which goes on until the end of August, I tell people, don't consider yourself clear of the Mercury retrograde until September 1st, is really going to be, the first half of it was going in and checking all the details, all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed, making sure that the minutia wasn't going to drown you or trip you up or leave you a pit of snakes to fall into because you didn't take care of them. But now it's asking you to go more into the vision and more into the expansive part of what you're here to do, who you're here to do. And of course, that is all in relationship with where this is in your chart. We have a full moon in Aquarius on August 19th. That's bringing to fruition something that we put when the new moon was there 6 months ago. We are now bringing to fruition some way in which we want to use our gifts, our talents, especially our intuitive talents, our creative talents, our emotions, to raise the vibration of our life or raise the vibration of humanity around us. Aquarians are always trying to, unpredictability. It's really about trying to shake you out of like old structures that don't work, old thought processes that don't apply anymore. And it also is trying to raise you up with the idea that it's raising you up through you raising the world up. So it's time to use friendships, hopes, wishes, organizations, use that part of you to work through to in some way lift up the energy of humanity as you see it. And that's really all that's going on this week. I mean, that's the big stuff. That's all I'm going to get into. Again, I apologize. Like last week, your charts and stuff are buried under a pile of something in the basement under plastic. And I just am not digging things out. So you get to start to apply all those times I have applied it to your chart and go, I can do this.
Exactly.
Any questions?
No, I think that all sounds good. I've got to look back at, must have been the new moon in February. So I'll have to look back and see what was going on around that time and see what's coming into fruition for August. Good stuff.
Yeah. Aquarius is one of the we signs. So we may feel like, I mean, we can only do us, but we are all part of a variety of we's. And it is the recognition that when my half of a we shifts and changes, your half of a we has to shift and change if the we is going to continue. But it's usually around higher thoughts, scientific, this is, again, Aquariuses are looking to raise the vibration of the evolving humanity. So
Gotcha.
Speaking of raising vibrations, trying to make the world a better place, trying to tune in and bring people to a place where humanity is at a better place than it was before we got here. I've always said that's one of my missions in this lifetime, is to leave the world a better place than I found it. I think that is the perfect time to bring in today's guest and for you to introduce him.
You bet. So today we have Adrian Emery, and I never know if I should bring him onto the screen before the intro or after. So I'll bring Adrian onto the screen and then read his bio. So there we have Adrian, who's coming in from the land of Down Under. He said he's in the mountains west of Sydney. He's an author, entrepreneur, business owner, environmentalist, gardener. He has devoted his life to creating a new philosophy called LifeWorks, based on an understanding the laws, principles, and the codes that make life work easily, effortlessly, and successfully. And Adrian has a new book. It's part 2 of a trilogy that we're going to talk about today. So, Adrian, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I'd like to pick up where Kevin just left off, because I am a double Aquarian. And I understand all of that perfectly. And yes, my mission as well has always been to raise the vibration of humanity, to leave the world a better place. So everything that you just said, 100 and 200% applies to me. And yeah, everything I've done has been very, very focused, not just writing, but even all of the, like yourself, all the things I've done in my life from a very early age. I was very clear that we're going through this momentous quantum leap. Humanity is just about, we're going to go through a paradigm shift. And so I am very, very focused on this whole Aquarian thing. And as you say, look, it can be a burden at times, because you definitely don't fit into the mainstream. People think you're a bit AWOL, but that's the way it is. And that's the way you have to be in order to be a catalyst and bring change into the world.
Are you familiar with a man named Leo Biscaglia?
No.
You just said something and it made me think, because I always loved how Leo said this. He was an earlier version of you and I that was around in the 70s.
Right.
But he kind of came from the approach. He wrote a book called Love. He taught a class called Love at UCLA. He said college students didn't come to college knowing actually how to love themselves or other people. And so he actually created a class that UCLA gave people credit for called Love. And he wrote a book called The Fall of Freddie the Leaf. He wrote several books. But I always remember him saying, if you can ever see any of his stuff on YouTube, I know you would appreciate it. He goes, people call me Crazy Leo because he hugged everybody and he loved fall leaves and he loved, he was this big, and he goes, and he said, I love being called Crazy Leo because it gives me a wide latitude of behavior, and people just go, yep, that's just crazy Leo.
Yep, and it's a validation. And interestingly, the most common thing my mother used to say to me when I was a very young child was, for someone who's supposed to be so intelligent, I don't know how you can be so stupid, because going back to the 70s and before the New Age, I was always saying this stuff which just seemed to be so natural to me, and self-evident from a cosmic perspective. But of course, back in those days, before any of this stuff was really getting out there, it was heretical and seemingly crazy. Now a lot of it is mainstream, and we're a lot more embracive of radical and different ideas than we were back in the 50s and the 60s. But yeah, so it's that's who Aquarians are. And as you're saying to your listeners, that's what the Aquarian energy does. It's here to shake things up and wake humanity up a little as we move and transition into our new era.
Kind of perfect timing for you to be here then.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you were talking about the full moon on well, next Monday here, the 19th. I'm not sure the date of the full moon here, but it'll coincide pretty well. So only a few days away.
Yeah, and the full moon is 3 days. Really, the energy of the full moon is 3 days, which is really great. But it sounds like you and I have had some parallel journey thing going on here, where we move from heretic to hero.
I'm not sure if we're the heroes yet, but obviously it's a little bit more acceptable. And look, you've got to be prepared to go through that. It's not an easy task to be a catalyst, to be a way shower, to be a map maker, to be a catalyst for change. I mean, obviously you can't be part of the mainstream if you want to shake things up. You've got to have a lateral perspective. And one of the things that I've done a lot of counseling in my life, and one of the things that I learned quite painfully was that when we're young and we're different, we see that difference as a liability, because when you're young, you just want to fit in, you want to be accepted, you want to be part of the group. But as you mature emotionally and spiritually, you actually start to realize that difference is your asset. To be authentic, I think particularly today in this age of mass media, social media, cloning, false narrative, everything trying to herd everybody into this sameness, I think, and what I teach mainly is to honor, respect, and love your authenticity. Know who you are. Befriend yourself. Spend time with yourself. Go within. Come from that inner space rather than coming from what's coming in from the world around us. The noise, as you were talking about before, renovating a house, I suppose, is a microcosm of what's happening to humanity, in the sense that as the structure, as the building of the Western world collapses around us, like your roof, and it's leaking all over the place, people are freaking out because they're living in chaos. But that structure needs to fall apart for us to be able to build the new system. And that's the way I look at it. As I said before, I've devoted my life to preparing humanity to go through this transition. I don't think any transition is easy. So, we're going through the eye of the storm right now, and it's creating a lot of turbulence and a lot of change.
Well, change is inevitable, and it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. It's like, are you going to make it harder by fighting against it, or are you going to surf it and kind of figure out who you are? But the problem is we have large swaths of humanity that are standing in the middle of that kitchen, whose roof is falling in and the rain is raining on them and everything is dissolving, and they're going, what leak? What are you talking about? What leak?
Or why doesn't the government come and help me? Where's the government? Where are the troops? But, it's interesting that you should say that, because that's what my book, TaoTuning, is all about, which is learning to surf those cosmic waves of change. Change is a part of reality. The cosmos, life, evolution, whatever you want to call it, is all about change. It moves on. And we have a very simple choice, which is you either hop on the wave and surf that wave of change, or you go into the paralysis of analysis, into resistance, into freezing, and don't know what to do. And that's a very futile and pessimistic approach to take, as you say, or be in denial. Yeah, stand there in the kitchen and go, what drops? What chaos? And I think that's where humanity is right now, is there's a lot of denial, particularly with you guys in America right now with your election. I mean, I love watching it. It's Hollywood couldn't have written it better. I say to everyone, it's like this amazing soap opera. Every day something is coming out, but there's not a lot of commentating, particularly in the mainstream press, about what's really happening. So,
Well, when people are blind, oftentimes I say, well, the first step to stopping blindness is to pull your head out of your backsides and wipe the shit out of your eyes. And when you open it, you won't be blind anymore. But
that's right.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, it's just a choice. It's just a decision. Everybody needs to make that choice every day when you wake up. Am I going to be awake, alive, aware, alert? Or am I going to wake up and go back to sleep? I don't think most people wake up when they get up in the morning. They just transition from one slumber state to another.
Well, survival of a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Ash. Did you have a question?
I was just going to, I want to hear more about the book, but we can get to that if you had another question on topic here.
Well, I was actually moving into, I would actually like to start with the arc, because you're creating a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I understand about trilogies. I'm 2/3 through a trilogy myself. Only mine are plays, not books in this case. But there's always an arc to a trilogy, is my perception. I could be wrong. So before we go into the book that's coming, which is, the TaoTuning, The Art of Flow, which will be available at $9.17 on Amazon. TaoTuning, The Art of Flow. You have one that's already come out. This is the second, and that means there's going to be a third. Can you tell me a little bit about the arc of the series first before we dive into the individual pieces?
Okay, great question, Kevin. Thank you. Okay, so the arc, or I call it the umbrella, the name of the trilogy is the Temple of Understanding. Basically, I am saying that we live within a monstrous misunderstanding, and like fish are in water, or we are in air, and we're not aware of it, humanity, but particularly the Western world, is unaware of this misunderstanding that we live within. And I like it to liken it to a virus, a pandemic, a software malfunction in our brains, in our neurology, which is misguiding us. So it's a misunderstanding. So the arc, or the umbrella of the Temple of Understanding, has three main pillars to the temple, which are the three books. The first book is called Personal Sovereignty. And why I termed it personal sovereignty is that I believe that humanity is very bad at making decisions and very bad at making the right decision. We are afraid of making decisions. We are afraid of being sovereign. We are afraid of taking responsibility for our own actions, because then I am responsible. Then I am accountable. Whereas if I don't make a decision, if I ask somebody else, and that other could be a friend, it could be the government, it could be society, it could be tradition, it could be religion, it doesn't really matter what that other is. But if I allow that other to determine my destiny, to determine my decisions, then I'm not sovereign. So to be sovereign, to exercise personal sovereignty, is the beginning. I need to be able to make my own choices. I need to be able to make my own decisions. And I need to accept responsibility for my own destiny. So that's the beginning. Once you've made your own decisions, then you need to know how to execute your life. Because if you got a destination, you've said your daughter's coming to Australia, she needs to have a plan. You got to get on a plane. You got to get here. You don't just put your hand up and say, I'm going to Australia. You need a travel plan to get somewhere. So it's the same in life. Once we know where we want to go, once we know our destination, our destiny, our calling, our mission, whatever you want to call it, our purpose, then we know how to execute that purpose efficiently, how to get to where we want to go. And TaoTuning is the art of flow. So I'm saying that there is an art and a science to living one's life spiritually. And I saw your logo up there before on the top of your thing that I think it said practical spirituality.
Yep.
So when I was very young, I realized it's easy to be a mystic and it's easy to be a capitalist. I wanted to be a capitalistic mystic or a mystical capitalist, meaning I wanted to build a bridge between spirituality and the here and now, that I wanted a spirituality that made sense, that was grounded, that was practical, that was pragmatic, that one could live one's life successfully by. There are so many errors in this temple of misunderstanding, which is basically, that to be spiritual, you need to be poor, or to be spiritual, you shouldn't be efficient, or to be spiritual, you shouldn't assert yourself, or to be spiritual, you need to be, and I didn't believe
Turn the
any
other
of that.
cheek so you can have matching bruises. Go ahead.
That's correct. And as an Aquarian, as a radical thinker, I thought, and as a Catholic, I was brought up a Catholic, I thought
My deepest sympathies. Go ahead.
None of this stuff makes sense. This is not real. This is absolute. And when I was a child, I used to imagine I was an Inca. Imagine I was an ancient Persian. Imagine I was in ancient Rome or Mesopotamia or wherever. I thought none of these concepts, none of these mores, none of these traditions and beliefs that we live in, they would have a different set. Therefore, they're all false. They're all just attributes that we have created. And I kept going deeper and deeper and deeper and wanted to find a set of principles whereby life worked. And that's why I call my philosophy LifeWorks, because all the religions, all the spirituality, all the philosophies and theosophies basically posit that life is a means to an end in another life, that it's a suffering, that it's a penance, whether it's karma or whether it's original sin. They all have the same story, which is basically that as a human being, you're not worthy, you're born in original sin, you're supposed to suffer, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, no, that's all nonsense. This obviously does not work. It doesn't make sense. So to cut a long story short, I wanted to create a pragmatic spirituality, a system of life that worked holistically, so that it didn't just work, as you just said, talking about doesn't just work for me selfishly, but works for me as well as everybody else, works for the planet, works for humanity, works for me, but works. It doesn't mean that I have to suffer. It doesn't mean that I have to be lowly, or that I have to, do penance or pray or beg or all that stuff. It means that I need to honor myself. I need to honor my own divinity, and that life is the most precious gift there is. So to come back to your question, so TaoTuning is the arch of the arc, how to create my life successfully. And then the ending of the arc, the third one, is called becoming one. So once you are sovereign, and two, you've learned how to create your life successfully, then you have arrived. You're at home. You can still achieve and create whatever you want to do, but you do it without creating injury, because you understand the oneness of life, and everything you do comes from that oneness. So once you become one, then you operate from that principle of singularity, of oneness, being one with life, being one with others, being one with yourself, being one with your body. So becoming one has 7 areas of oneness that one needs to go into, starting with becoming one with yourself, becoming one with your body. So that is the overarching arc or the umbrella of the trilogy.
Thank you. That's
So go ahead, Ashley.
nope, I'm good. Go ahead.
So what I hear, correct me if I'm wrong, the first book is helping you actually know you have a choice.
To exercise
Because
that choice. Yes, to
and
exercise that choice, because there.
well,
Let me
first you
just
need
answer
to
that.
realize you have the choice,
Have a
because
choice.
Western conditioning makes you
There is
feel
no
like there are
choice.
so many things, right,
Yep.
that I
Yeah.
hear it all. I mean, I've been doing full time spiritual inspirational catalyst work for 34 years, and the very first thing is people like, well, I don't have a choice. Like no, 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 no. You can't have sovereignty until you know you have a choice.
That's correct. And I like to say that you're right. The Western paradigm is God and the devil playing football, and you're just the football in the middle. You don't have agency. You don't have sovereignty. You don't have control. But it's a cop out. How easy is it to blame the devil? How easy is it to blame the government? How easy is it to blame God? To blame life. I mean, that's all so much nonsense, because it's that much harder to say, I have 100% agency for my life. So I like to say there are two gifts. The first gift is the gift of life, and the second gift is the gift of free will choice, with which you can and do create whatever you determine. Life is a blank canvas. Most people don't believe that, because, as I said before, they believe in karma, they believe in original sin, they believe in whatever it is that all of these other influences are determining. And it's quite interesting. I mean, if you go into it, if you look at Lutheranism and Calvinism, which very much were predeterministic, eventually became
Yep.
fascism. And what is happening on the planet today is exactly that. It is robbing people of their personal sovereignty. The whole elite agenda, the whole mass media, social media, cloning, influencer is all designed to take away personal sovereignty, personal free will. So you are 100% correct. First of all, I need to accept, acknowledge, embrace that I am 100% sole agent of my life. Nobody else, nothing
And
else.
that I am capable of making those decisions. I deserve to make those decisions. And those decisions are a series of growth experiences, not mistakes.
That's correct. And that's what TaoTuning is all about. That and that's a really good point, Kevin, because it is, it's like we have to, I like to say, we have to get out of this feebleness, this timidity, this fear of, what happens if I make a mistake? Well, you can't make a mistake, because the choices you make are the stepping stones, or the opportunities on your journey. And when you look back at your life, you actually realize that the biggest, I won't say fuck ups, whatever, are the biggest learnings. They're the best opportunities in your life. At the time, yeah, it may seem like a complete and utter tragedy of what you're doing, but when you look back, you go, geez, that was fantastic, because I learned so much, I grew so much from that I actually, particularly if you're wise, catapulted yourself through a quantum leap of consciousness into another level. But I think you're right, is that, first of all, you have to acknowledge and accept that you have sovereignty or free will choice. And secondly, that you have the ability to lead your life elegantly and excellently, with fun, with joy. It doesn't have to be this huge tragedy. And I think that's the other thing in what I'm talking about in the misunderstanding, is that because we have this concept of original sin, we're not good enough, life's a bitch, things are always going to go wrong, it doesn't really matter what I do, it's not going to work. This is all a very, very pessimistic, negative, and debilitating paradigm that we live within. as opposed to the new paradigm, which is very self-empowering. And yeah, I get to do what I like. I get to do what I want, but I am going to reap the consequences of my actions. And those consequences, that experience is going to teach me something. And then I'm going to go, well, was that a good idea or a bad idea? Did I enjoy that? Did I not enjoy that? Did that make me a better person or a worse person? Or like, I won't, it's like, how do you grow? You stick your finger in the fire, you get burned. You think, well, I won't do that again. A little child learns to walk by getting up and falling down. Is that falling down a mistake? No, it's just a part of learning how to walk, But when we get older and we fall down, metaphorically, we think that we're wrong. We think that we're bad. We feel ashamed. We feel humiliated. We don't want anybody. Does the child feel humiliated when it falls down? Or it giggles and laughs and gets up again? It's just a big joke. It's not like, oh, I'm not a very good kid here. I can't stand up. So, we have to get over this, this whole punishment, humiliation, badness, wrongness, not good enough. There's something wrong with me. It's a very insidious thought system. I'm calling it a paradigm. It's a huge belief system that particularly infects the Western world. But we live within it. Coming back to your arc, or what I call this umbrella of, we live within that paradigm.
Well, I was, in my combination of blessings and challenges, and they both have their good and bad sides, so to speak, is, I was raised Unitarian Universalist. So we didn't teach original sin. We didn't teach a God that was throwing lightning bolts. We were taught that we had a responsibility of how we affected the humanity, that humanity was our family, and that anybody that was suffering in any part of our family negatively impacted us, so.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because, the whole we are one. And I think that it's a combination of religion and Madison Ave, because, the Madison Ave of the Western world in the 50s did a very intentional campaign to destroy self-esteem, self-worth, and sovereignty or agency over your body and your life, even to a greater degree. It's like it took notes from religion and then put it on steroids.
Yeah,
it's
all very clever.
Yeah, we're going to destroy your self-worth, so you have to buy our whatever to make you desirable, to make you loved,
to make you okay, to make you feel good, to make you acceptable. And look, that's another really good point, Kevin. This is not, none of this has been accidental. This has been going on for thousands upon thousands of years, where the elite, in whichever form or guise, has wanted to control humanity. And humanity is much easier to control if they're docile, if they're asleep, if they're cloned, if they're following. I mean, as you say, advertising, Madison Avenue, the internet is all just now a very, very sophisticated version. But we can go back to all the totalitarian regimes over the last thousands of years. They all pretty much read from the same script. And it's just that it's become very, very schmick now. I mean, the whole pandemic of bullying on the internet and suicide and depression and loneliness, which WHO has declared as the new pandemic. How is it that we live in the most advanced, wealthy, technological society that has ever existed on the planet, and yet basically the individual is unhappy, unfulfilled, poor, homelessness, when I call it unwell, I mean diseased, ill health, all of these things. We don't have any of the symptoms, or what one would consider to be maybe symptoms are not the right word, but the attributes of a very wealthy, successful society, do we? I mean, if you were a Martian, you came down here and you looked at these guys, you would go, their life sucks. It doesn't look very good to me. It's not very happy. It's not very successful. And I really wanted to go
What?
back to a comment you were making before about the retrograde. It's like we don't even have time to be. We've become human doings running around so focused on the to-do list, the agenda, where am I going, people to meet, blah, 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 this yammer of the mind. And so in TaoTuning and the art of flow, the two main characteristics of the state of flow are, number one, that you are here now, you are in the present, you are in the moment, past and the future do not exist, and you are right here. So you don't want to be somewhere else where the grass is always greener. It's a very focused state where you are, as you were saying when you were doing the astrology, is that people need to take time regularly, not just because there's a retrograde or something going on, but daily, many times a day, where you just stop and be yourself. And it's okay. You don't have to freak out or think that there's something wrong with you because you are spending time with yourself or alone. Like I like to say to people, it's like if you meet someone, fall in love, or just have a friendship, you want to hang out with that person. You want to spend time with that person. You want to get to know that person. But in this society, if you want to hang out with yourself, if you want to spend time with yourself, if you are, spending time on your own, and a really good test, when I was doing a lot of counseling, say, take yourself out for dinner, sit in a restaurant on your own and enjoy your meal, and don't feel that there's something wrong with you, or that there's, people are looking at you because you're on your own, therefore that, you poor person. It's like, hang on, I'm having a ball with myself. I'm really enjoying my own company. I'm getting to learn what I want to choose for. Going back to this principle of choice, it's like anything. You need to practice making decisions. And I used to always say to my clients, practice with a little decision. What are you going to have for dinner? But don't ask anyone. Make a sovereign decision of little things that are not necessarily huge in your life to build up to the big decisions. Now, what do most people do when they've got an important choice to make? They immediately turn around and ask their, somebody else in their life, whether it's their spouse or their significant other or a, mentor or whatever, rather than going, okay, I need to just get away from everybody and everything. I need to turn within. I need to stop. I need to become silent. And I need to know, not necessarily think, but to know from my gut, from my heart, from my intuition, from my visceral knowing what is right for me, which comes back to your point about, yes, you need to know that you can make a choice, and you need to know that you can make a good choice, that you can make the best choice for you when you just listen to your inner self.
I think that that's something that Kevin and I, try to spread out there to the people that we touch, is like, what you need. Take that time to listen to your intuition, take the time to be, and, tune into yourself, because somewhere in there, what you need. And I think it's lost in a lot of the stuff that's going on around us these days.
Yeah, I think you always know the answer.
Yeah. A distracted, divided population is easier to manage and control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why the powers that be are constantly putting people at each other's throats, so that they won't notice what con artists they are, or how they're abusing their power.
So they're either using Hollywood, which we'll use as a euphemism for entertainment, or they're using the internet and influencers, or they're using division, which is now the populism of the far right, or they're using a war somewhere around the world. So we are always constantly distracted by even the to-do list. Hey, I'm on the treadmill. I've got to stay on the treadmill. I've got a mortgage. I've got this. We're just basically economic prisoners. We've become, we live in a very feudalist society where we are just serfs, not SERFs, who basically have to go to work every day to earn the money, to pay the bills, to keep the whole thing going. While, very surreptitiously and insidiously, they're pulling the rug out from underneath us. Inflation, cost of living, all these things that are just happening more and more. And people don't realize that they're running faster and faster, getting nowhere fast.
Hamster wheel.
It's a very bad.
Yeah, the hamster wheel. But when people, and this is, I think, one of the keys to a happy life, to a successful life, and you kind of touched on it. But when people say to me, like, what do I do for work? I'm like, I don't do work. I do joy. I get up every day. I get paid to be me. It doesn't get any better than that.
No.
And so being paid, so I don't go into a day and go, oh, I have to do this thing that I really is a waste of my time, or I hate, or whatever. I go, I love working with my clients. I love teaching. I love doing these things. And the universe rewards me with prosperity.
That's correct. And Confucius
Because
said, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Now, one of the businesses that I have had in my life is called Lifestyle Optimization Consultancy. And I basically taught, that you've got to love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, either figure out a way to love it or don't do it. Go and do something else. Because as you say, if you don't love what you do, if you don't do it wholeheartedly and with joy, you're not going to do it well. I mean, how often have you talked about your trades people earlier? It's like if that plumber with the leak, if you are and it comes back to the art of flow, it comes back to ikigai, it comes back to being in the flow. If you're in the flow, if you're loving what you're doing, nobody needs to tell you. You thought you were in a house full of 2-year-olds. You don't act as a 2-year-old. You act with conscious awareness. Because you're in joy, you want to do that job well. You want to be focused. You don't even think about it. You don't go, oh, I better go and move a pot over there, otherwise Kevin's going to get the shits. It doesn't work that way. You just go, oh, there's a drip, I'll put a pot underneath it. It's just an automatic, intuitive, instinctive way of living that comes from joy. When we're in joy, we're in the flow, we're in the moment, we do the right thing, we create goodness, not because we want to be an evangelist, not because we want to be a missionary, not because we want to, be holier than thou. It is just that joy is the creative principle of the universe. And when you're in joy, you're creating, you're being spontaneous, you're being intuitive, you're creating good. It just works. And as you say, and so the universe comes along and goes, well, I'm going to, that is abundance. That is prosperity. That is, and you don't actually have to then think, well, I'm going to charge this person X, or I'm going to do that, or, I'm going to go on this podcast to sell books. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't come from your mind. It comes from the expression of who I am, and this is what I need to do. So the doing comes from my beingness. Going back to what we were talking about before, is that if I do in order to have, in order to get, there will always be an ulterior motive, which is part of the negative ego. If I do because it just comes from my beingness, because you want to be who you are, that you want to be a catalyst, or not even that you want to be a catalyst, it's because you are a catalyst. So you can't really change that, like if I'm Beethoven, I just write music because that's who I am. If I'm a Van Gogh, I paint because that's who I am. If I'm a great musician or a great performer, I sing, or, because that's who I am. It's not something that is contrived or artificial. So for me, TaoTuning and the art of flow is find out who you are, what your essence is, what is your gift, what is the thing that you really want to give to the world to express yourself, and you'll just do that with love and joy. Whether you call it work or not, I think to a certain extent it's work in the sense that it has a discipline to it. But yeah, work is a very bad. Unfortunately, it's got a lot of connotations now that
it's got a bad rap. It's not a bad word. It's just got a bad rap, because work isn't pleasant for the majority of people. So,
well, I call my philosophy LifeWorks. I mean, when your life works, when
it's a
things
good word. Yeah.
When you get in your car, if it works or not. If you turn on your vacuum cleaner, I mean, I've got a saying. I say, you don't hop on a vacuum cleaner and expect to fly around the world. Your daughter's not going to get on a vacuum cleaner and fly to Australia because that's not fit for purpose. It's not what a vacuum cleaner was designed to do. She's also not going to get in a car and drive to Australia,
What did you say, Ashley?
I said, unless you're on Bewitched.
Unless you're on Bewitched.
I was going to say, unless you're Kathy Najimy in Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. Yeah. Was that the vacuum? Maybe Bewitched was the vacuum.
Yeah, that was the flying vacuum.
Damn, I was so close.
If you can get yourself to that point of evolution, great, But for us less immortals,
especially if it has a solar panel on it, because it keeps you in the air longer. Yes. TaoTuning, the art of flow, released 9/17/24. You can find it on Amazon. Yes. You can find more about Adrian Emery at adrianemery.com. You can also follow him on Instagram, which I'm trying to find his Instagram one. I know I made it, so it's here somewhere.
Adrian Moran.
There we go. Yep.
And Facebook,
there we go.
Adrian Emery, author.
There we go. So thank you so much for coming on. We're going to let you go have your full day in Australia while we go into our dinner time here in America. Thank you for coming on, Adrian.
And I hope your tradesmen get their act together and finish your renovations very soon for you. But, that's called being physical.
4 or 5 more weeks. Yep.
Okay. Lovely to meet you both. Okay. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you, Adrian. Yep. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
All right.
Well, on that, we've got 90 seconds for wrap down. Any quick closing thoughts?
No, I was riveted by a lot of what he said. I mean, he speaks very well, and it's a lot of what he's talking about is very interesting. I want to know more about him too. I think when I looked at his website and a little bio, he sounds like an interesting guy. So, me, I like the human part of the story. So I wanted to hear more about that. So maybe we'll have him back one day and we can start there. But it was very interesting.
Next week. So this Sunday, you can come to Spiritual Interactive Panel. Come to either facebook.com/New Hampshire Metaphysical, or go to LinkedIn, Kevin Ross Emery, or YouTube, Kevin Ross Emery. We are one of the people on the show is Patty Anastasia, is on the SIP panel, but she's also going to be on our show next week.
Yes, she's the guest coming up.
Yep. So you can see her this Sunday on the SIP talking about animal communication as one of our panelists, or tune in next Thursday, or do both, and hear about her new book, which was just released. So I look forward to doing that.
Same.
The only thing I thought when he said about the grass being greener, we all have this thing about the grass being greener. That we're kind of taught about, that we're always in doing this comparison. And, the other thing I could think of is, when are we going to learn to love brown grass? When are we going to beauty in brown grass? When are we going to find the beauty in what we have instead of the longing for what we don't? Because we basically do a disservice and are disrespectful to every good thing in our life when we ignore it for whatever we perceive would be something better. And that keeps us out of link. So,
Great.
First year, very cool. Well, welcome, Lori.
Welcome,
We're here
He's a friend of mine.
Thursday night, 6 to 7. Make sure you join us. You can see our old shows. But Ashley, we're winding down.
We are. We're overtime. So sorry I will miss Sunday, but have a wonderful rest of the week. Good luck with your builders, and see you next Thursday.
You know, my builders will be fine. I can just, you know what it is. You got to let off steam.
Vent away. Vent away. All right. Take care.
Bye. Namaste.
Bye.